Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. I'm Kent. I'm Chris's brother. And he's smiling. He sees you and is smiling. It means the world for you to be here. Thank you. Special thanks to Lynn and Peter for putting all this together. I know it had to be like herding cats there for a while. But wow, look, thank you. It's great. And Cynthia, thank you. Help Chris get his life back. Give him back to us in the process. Then you let him go on his own terms with dignity. Thank you. My partner, Amy, not sure how we would have done this without you. I stood in that bedroom doorway, looked in the room. Chris was in there, and there were two people. Looked like Cynthia and Amy helping Chris. I'm pretty sure they were angels. There's a line in one of Chris's songs. It says, if I were me, you were, brother, and we thank you. Thank God for it, and we love you. Thank you.
So thank you, Kent. So my name's Martel Day, and Chris and I have been good friends for right around 45 years. The person with Chris in the back was my wife for 47 years. And they were actually blood brothers at LaGrange College. And then they've had this great relationship for a very long time. And then I think I need to explain this to you. How many other people have a coat and tie on? So this is in the realm of payback. So Cindy Wapinski Day, who many of you know, passed away a year and a half ago. And Chris came to her memorial service wearing a black suit and a tie. And so I thought this would be appropriate payback for Chris for doing that. So it's highly unlikely that I'll make this through without being emotional. And so the good part of that is that everybody else who's going to be emotional, it's okay because I've already done that for you. So you can not worry about it. So, I don't know, a significant number of years ago, my father passed away, and I was missing him, and I thought, I just need to talk to him somehow. So I had an imaginary conversation with him. And I said, Dad, I'm really missing you. And he said, so let's see, I want to get this right. When I was alive, you lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and I lived in Joplin, Missouri, and we saw each other 3 to 4 times a year. I said, that's about right. He said, so where was I when you talked to me most of the time? And he was actually living within me. And he said, so the reality is that not much has changed. I'll still be with you. I'll still be living in you. And anytime you want to talk to me, I'll be there for you. So then shortly after that, I was in Park City, Utah, and my mother-in-law passed away. And after she passed away, I was watching this beautiful sunset over Salt Lake. And I had an imaginary conversation with her, and I said, you know, I'm really sorry, Kay, that you're not going to be able to experience this beauty. And she said, oh my gosh, you don't understand. It's a little different. It's true, I can't experience this beauty the way you're experiencing it, but now I'm actually able to be one with that. And so then I was very honored to be able to spend some of Chris's last days with him. And I was just sitting in the room, being quiet. He was asleep. And my wife, who had passed away a year earlier, suddenly appeared. And she was talking with Chris. And she said, so Chris, there's nothing to be afraid of. All you have to do is follow me and it will all be okay. And I actually feel like that's true. And so then if you think about our situation today, where does Chris really live and where has he lived the majority of the time? He really has lived in our hearts. And my contention is that he's still there and he will continue to live through all of us who loved him. And he'll continue to live through the stories that are going to be shared here, the experiences that are going to be shared here tonight. He'll, of course, continue to live through his music. And then, of course, he'll continue to live through the memories that each of us will continue to have. So I just want to say, God bless and protect and keep Chris and love all of you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm either going to throw up or pass out, one or the other. My name is Cynthia St Holmes, and I've been Chris's partner for the past 11 years, and he was my fiance, and I'm very proud of that. I would be remiss if I didn't thank a few people here, Lynn and Peter Stroud. The logistics on this were mind-boggling. My mind is psychedelicized on how much charts and graphs and, I mean, Lynn, you missed your calling. Peter, thank you for putting Chris's music together so we could all hear all of it anytime we wanted to. Kenny Cresswell, thank you so much for everything that you do. Smith, Old Bar, Dan Nolan, Mike Reeves, rest his soul, Marcy and Lori. Thank you so much for taking 10s, 20s, and 30s of my calls a day and just listening to me. You have been the best friends I've ever had. And Jolie, for getting me out of the house and making me do things that are uncomfortable but necessary. Amy, not only are you an amazing drummer, but you are a registered nurse, and you taught me things I thought I would never need to know. And we have bonded in a way that is so special, and you will always be my sister. And Kent Edmonds, thank you for keeping the boogeymen away and making sure nobody went to any portals, and just being a protector. And you mentioned that when you hear my voice, you hear your brother's voice. And brother, you will always hear my voice. Like the majority of you, I met Chris in the early 80s, and I think he was, weirdly enough, opening for Ted Nugent. And I wonder why I was there, but, anyway. And anytime I saw his set, and I was like, this is amazing, and I thought he was such a great showman, and I said, I got to see where this guy is playing, and any chance I got, I went to see him play. I thought he had great stage presence, and that came from his drama at LaGrange College, and I thought he was a brilliant and prolific songwriter, and with a really unique voice. His was deep and dark and oh, so fucking sexy. And I would give anything in the world right now to hear it. But with all these things being said, there were a few things that he loved more than music, which is wow, and that he was most proud of, and those were his children and his grandson. And Blue, every time you made some clothes and you sold it to someone, we had to get on YouTube and find out who it was. And we had to Wikipedia because we didn't know who the hell it was. But we were very proud of you. You're a great entrepreneur. And Sam, every time we turned around, you're getting a promotion or a raise. And he was so proud of you and just how driven you were. And he was looking forward to walking you down the aisle to Katie, who he adored. And then Ryder Phoenix, the love of Chris's life, his grandson, who called him Pops, and I'm Bubbles, and I'm very proud of that name. But even, you all have your own memories of Chris. They're very personal. Whether you're his family, his band family, his chosen family, you all knew and had such great fond memories of Chris. And it's just so fucking hard. I have two memories that I would like to share with you. And one is I heard from Mary Ellen Jones moved to Nashville. And one night, Rick Chapman and Mary Ellen Jones called me and said, Chris Edmonds is in town. Why don't you and Patty Ray come and see him? And we're going to play some music, and we're going to make some food, and we're going to chit-chat. So we went over there, and I swear to you, as I was walking up the stairs, you know that song by Marcy's Playground? You got it, right? You know the lyrics. As I was walking up the steps, it was on heavy rotation in my head. And I was like, oh my God, it's Chris Edmonds. I haven't seen him in years. And I walked over to him and he goes, where have you been? And he laid one on me and gave me a hug, and that was it. 11 years later, here we are. And that's a wonderful memory. And then one more, and that is most recent, when we went to the oncologist and they had all found out about Chris's music, and they had put a picture of him that they found on the internet on his My Chart. You know what My Chart is, where you can go and read all of your medical things going on. And so when we came in, the nurses were all giddy over him, and we listened to all your music. And I said, of course you did. I mean, who doesn't? And the doc looked at him. They talked for a little while, and the doc looked at him and said, is it true what they say about sex, drugs, and rock and roll? And Chris said, Doc, I don't kiss and tell. But I found the two most wonderful women and somehow talk them into loving me. And I am so proud to be that one of them. And Gina, I know you are too. I know you are. And so with that being said, here's to Chris Edmonds, a true Southern gentleman, a brilliant songwriter, the love of my life. May all your memories of Chris not fade away. Please. And as Chris would say, don't forget to tip your bartenders and waitresses.
Yeah, it's really hard to follow her. She's pretty dang great at this stuff. My name's Kenny Cresswell. I have the honor here to read the letter that Chris wrote to his kids, which spent a lot of time with them. It was awesome, and I'm just going to read it because I'm going to do my best. They got a drummer to read, which is really a bad idea, first of all. So, as Elvis Week comes to a close, let's examine the arc of Elvis and his music. Elvis started as a searcher, looking for his voice, his sound, looking for who he really was. He found it right there in Sun Studio in Memphis. He was raw, exciting, with the promise of the world in front of him. Colonel Parker steered him to Hollywood, where he lost his soul and missed bad movies and albums filled with subpar material. By the way, this is perfectly Chris. He wrote all this thing. It's just, I can hear him saying it. It's pretty awesome. So, and then the 1969 comeback TV special is case in point. But still, unfortunately, he became trapped. Living in exile, the former king of rock and roll is now a bloated remnant of his old self, destined to die alone, despite his cadre of friends and hanger-ons. I dearly hope that he faced those final moments as he told himself he was still Elvis. That's Chris. Perfect, right? So I enter this final chapters of my life. There are some things that you should know. Life is sometimes hard, cruel, and unjust. Sometimes you gasp with the joy of life. You will lose and you will win the daily battles of living. You will lose friends and make new ones. And change will become the constant of life. Adapt to change. Don't fight it. It's always a losing battle. And appreciate the beauty of things, but remember the part Remember, part of the beauty is it never lasts. And like Elvis, we will make wrong decisions and become unduly influenced by outside factors or persons who do not have the best interest in our mind. It happens because we're all human. But there is good news. That's perfect, Chris, right? It's exactly what he said. I know you, my children. Each one of you are different. Each one of you has his own shining individuality, but also so alike. You all have good hearts, sometimes hidden, sometimes gloriously exposed. Keep that good heart. Be kind. Stand up for yourself. Remember, your family will always be the ones that love you, no matter what. And best of all, you will find that in the little things we're so worried about mean nothing at all. So ease your troubled minds. Know that being you is all you have to be. Make being you the most important job. And remember, being you is good enough. But being you is always a work in progress. So strive to be the best you. Kindness and grace. Having dreams and pursuing them. Stranger, standing tall. Don't worry about other people and what they say. Nobody in this world knows everything and no one will. And like Elvis, sometimes you will be down, out of favor, make mistakes, but never give up. Do you hear me? Do you hear me, my children? We never give up. To the very last, we keep joy and love in our hearts. Excuse me. And I got it. And we think every day might be a good day, even so it's our last. Sorry, hold on. Our last thing for today is a young man running around all rock and roll. I never imagined I would be the father of these 3 children. It scared me probably, but I was so wrong. Loving you, each of you, was the easiest thing I had ever done. It's been the best thing that ever happened to me, and imagine that I thought it would be hard. Sorry, damn. I was trying not to do this. You are my story too. I hope and you remember me as a songwriter, and I hope that I have inspired you. But in the end, you turned out the best things I ever did.
All right. Hey guys, I'm Sam. I'm Chris's middle child. I'm going to try my best to get through this, but this is so painful and no words could ever amount to how much we loved our dad. Our dad was not meant to leave us this soon. We just saw him last Christmas running around the house shooting Nerf guns with Ryder, just like he played with us. It goes to show how special he made every memory for everyone. My dad was a father, a friend, a brother, pops, a musician, a jokester, a coach, and our biggest cheerleader, and so many things to us than we could ever convey. Growing up, one of the biggest bonds my dad and I had was basketball, and he always believed in me and made me feel like hot shit. Though I stopped playing over 10 years ago, this April this year, he randomly texted me, "You had something when you had the ball in hand, always will." In his last 2 months, my dad would not be quiet about basketball or Caitlin Clark, and now I will never shut up about them either. Blue and I got very lucky to grow up around my mom and dad being married, but we also got something really beautiful out of my parents splitting up. We got to know my dad on a whole new level, living with him just part-time or part of the week. Yes, he fed Blue and I brownies and mini Cokes for breakfast. And he got to know us also. It wasn't always easy, but his love never wavered from us, and we always knew how much he loved us. We also got to meet people who were very important to my dad over the years, and that was very special. My dad was a one-of-a-kind man that will always leave a gaping hole in my heart, by no longer being with us, but he left an even bigger part of my heart that was filled with so much love, laughter, and memories that will live on into my future children who will know my dad from all the beautiful memories that we have with him. I will forever miss him.
I'm Blue, his only son. I don't think I'm gonna make it through much of this, so please forgive me if I don't. Um, Me and my dad had a hard time growing up, and there was a lot of times I didn't see him or talk to him. Um, I spent a lot of time angry at him. I love you too. Um, I tried to run away from him, growing up, and the more I did that, the more trouble I got myself in. A lot of the same trouble he got himself into. Um,
I'm gonna read it for Blue. I'm sorry if I butchered this, okay? I know a lot of people here know my dad as the rock star musician he is, but for me, regardless of how cool I think he is my dad most importantly. There are no words that can explain the nuance of our relationship, but we always loved each other and there was never any doubt of that. We had a lot of fun while I was growing up, but there were also times we weren't speaking or times we would not see each other for a long time. As a teenager, I began to rebel against everything I could. During that time, I felt angry at everyone and everything so much that I would try to defy the fact that I resembled my dad so closely. The more I rebelled and ran away, the more I found myself facing the same struggles, fighting the same battles as my dad, which made me understand some of the pain and hardship my dad had to overcome. When I finally decided it was time to get better, my dad made it a point to be a part of that. Even when things got real difficult and we agreed, he still was there to pick me up, give me a cigarette, and tell me to check myself and relax. When I was in recovery, he allowed me to find my own way through it while still having my back the whole time. We spent a lot of the time together during my recovery, even when I didn't want to. And that would lead me into these last 5 years. 5 years I'm most proud of, as me and my dad, mainly my dad, worked so hard to rebuild our relationship. It's also 5 years I will forever cherish as we fully succeeded in rebuilding our relationship, and I felt that we were as close as a father and son could be. And since I was finally listening, I learned from him what it means to be a true artist, a man, a son, and a rebel with a cause. I also learned so much about my dad through our time spent together, and I realized through learning about him, I learned a lot about myself. I fully believe we are one and the same ever since. I didn't want to run from being his son anymore. I wanted to tell the world, and I am forever thankful for the family that my mom and dad created because they raised a family that will stop at nothing to love and fight for one another. The last thing I want to share is a message that he sent responding to a text that I sent saying that I felt like we were two different versions of the same people. The message reads, I think what you say is true, with one exception. I truly believe you're the better version. When I look at you, I feel such pride, but also that feeling of us being the same. Those things that we find hard to express just means we feel something deeper. And I believe in you, and I want you to believe in yourself. And sometimes that's hard for us to do, but we don't waver, do we? I love you with the love of 1,000 lifetimes. I love you, Dad.
I wasn't nervous until about 10 minutes ago. And the first time I thought about what I was going to say, it went about 5.5 minutes. It could have probably gone a lot longer, but I'm trying to bring it down a little bit. Anyway, oh gosh, this is really emotional, you all. Chris Edmonds, Christopher Lyle Edmonds. I moved from Atlanta to LaGrange in 1969-70. It was very difficult. And about a year later is when I met Chris Edmonds, right before the 12th grade. And I had just lost a boyfriend. That had been about 2 months. And as time went on with Chris's music, he impacted my life a lot. And over the course of the last 55 years, I moved that man 7 times. The first 2 times were in my green pickup truck that I was really proud of. And one of those times was when I moved back to LaGrange after being in Atlanta for a while. And we went to the dump together. And he was opening up the arts. And it's called the Arts. He brought musicians and local musicians and artists to the LaGrange area. It was right on downtown LaGrange, and it was just great. And the second time we went to a flea market in Hogansville, Georgia, and got a bunch of tables and chairs for the arts. A few years later, he decided that he didn't want to do that anymore, and he decided he wanted to move to Atlanta and seek his fame and fortune. So here we go in my green pickup truck again, and I moved him to Atlanta. And he moved to Eastlake. And it wasn't very crowded back then. And I can remember throwing a Frisbee out in the middle of the street with him. It was really fun. Anyway, over the course of many years, our lives crisscrossed at various times in our lives. And it was all very significant. He was my friend. And I got to know him over those years. And especially the last 10 years of his life. And that's when I got together with his brother again. And I first got with his brother back at the Arts. And that's when I first met him. And then here we go 45 years later, and I met Kent again. And me and Kent and Cynthia and Chris got to know each other really well these last 10 years. It was really fun. I got to know Chris's family, and it was lovely. But that last week of his life was one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. I was a nurse for 30 years, and I'd never experienced anything like this before. And that last week, it was me and Evie and Cynthia, Kent. I gotta look at this. Hold on, y'all. I don't want to miss anybody's names. Oh my God. And I can't believe I'm nervous like this, but I am. This is so heartfelt. Oh goodness. So we were at Cynthia and Chris's house. It was Cynthia and Kent and me and Evie and Sammy, Katie, Blue, Martel, Gina, Chad, Ryder. We all came together that last week, you all, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. We all came together as a team. We took shifts taking care of Chris, giving him all the dignity and respect and love that you've ever seen. It was lovely. It was of a passing of a soul. And we all were together right at the very end, the very last breath, y'all. And it was so lovely. And his music was playing in the background, and it was so sweet. So I don't know if some of you might know this, but I play West African music, and there is a song, there is a word in West African Manding, and it's called Nankama, Nankama, and it means born to do it. And for me, I think that's so applicable to Chris. He was born to be a songwriter, be a director, be a magic man, have an amazing presence, and a performer. And so I just want to say a couple of words that were healing for me when that loss I had when I was 17. Really, I just wept when I heard this song. It's funny too because every time I asked him to sing this song out, he wouldn't do it. And but this is the way it went. And I also want to thank Eileen Kimball, who was also on that album. It's the Forget Me Not album, and it touched my heart, y'all. It says, "You never know what's around the bend. You never know how this whole thing will end. Take the good with the bad. Don't look so sad, because you never know. I lived life like I wanted to, except for 100 times or two. I kept my head up. Yeah, I kept my head up. Now maybe I've lost in this world more than I have wanted. And along the way, I nearly had too much fun. I found myself, and I don't really know what the last part was. And I always meant to ask him, what is it? So if you hear the music, will somebody please let me know what those last words were? It's killing me. And then he did something very, very sweet. And I got turned 70 years old. Oh, I don't know, about a couple years ago, I guess. Anyway, and Annie and Joe and David, Annie and Joe in particular, and David, and Chris played for my 70th birthday. And he said, sure, I'll do it. I'll be happy to do it for you. What song do you want? And this is the song I wanted. It's lovely. I see you's looking tired tonight, a lot of running around in your head. I know you want to scream or worse. Maybe just take a breath instead. It'll pass, it always does, until the next worry comes along. But if you'll just hold on, you'll be fine, etc. And then he goes, do it, right? So he did it. He did some really great music for all of us. He left music for us to love. Sure do miss him. And anyway, I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
My name's Phil Grant. A lot of you are probably wondering why I'm up here, and so am I. I lost one of my best friends just a few months ago, and I just felt like I wanted to share a few things about knowing him just as a friend, things that may not seem like a lot, but meant a lot to me. I originally met Chris at LaGrange College during my first few weeks on campus in 1971. One of the areas I was interested in was speech and drama, so I decided to go speak to the head of the speech and drama department, Doc Estes. Went to his office and walked in, and wouldn't you know it, Chris was already talking to him. He was already a star. When I walked in, Doc looked up at me and turned to Chris and said, so the gentleman coming in here is from Waycross, Georgia. When he said that, I figured that Chris's reaction would be, where's Waycross? Or maybe, what is Waycross? But instead, Chris looked up immediately and said, do you know Graham Parsons? As soon as I heard that, I knew that it was very likely Chris and I would become friends. The friendship was cemented within a day or two when we both realized that we shared a semi-religious reverence for the Beatles. I mean, if that's not a solid basis for friendship, what is? Um, this led to more than 50 years of intense discussions about who was better, John Lennon or Paul McCartney. I remember in 1974, I persuaded Chris to join me and another friend to go to a nightclub in Atlanta called Richards to see the New York Dolls. Now, Chris was not very familiar with the band's music, but I kept insisting that he had to see the Dolls, and so he gave in. He ended up absolutely loving them. In fact, the summer before last, when we were at a memorial remembrance for one of the sweetest ladies in the world, Cindy Day, a mutual best friend of ours, he made a point of asking if I remembered the Dolls show because he wanted to thank me for dragging him to see them. He always remembered things like that, even when you forgot. I remember another instance when I'd just gotten an advanced pressing of the Traveling Wilburys' first album and gave it to him to listen to around 10 p.m. And at 4 a.m. in the morning, my phone rang and I picked it up and Chris just said, "The Wilburys rule. Thank you," and hung up. Now, my wife did not find that nearly as amusing as I did. Anyway, the main thing is that the music that I got to hear over the years being written mostly by Chris and performed by the Swinging Richards and Caesar Speaks and other performances live and recorded that Chris was involved in is, in my opinion, unsurpassed. I remember every time that he would do something new, and it would seem like just perchance I would call him and he would fill me in. Anyhow, one thing I'll mention, I don't know if anybody can get it, but the last record that I know of that he did, music from the Blue House, is some of the best music that I think he ever wrote. It's absolutely awesome if you get a chance. Anyhow, I miss calling him to hear about the music and to talk about the music, the old music, the new music, and to talk about family. And he did love you guys so much. Anyhow, that's really all I got to say, except most of the time that we talked, the last thing we said before we hung up is, "I love you, man." So, Chris, I love you, man.
Well, yesterday afternoon, when I knew I was going to be up here doing this today, I went into my office with a pen and a piece of paper, and I spent all afternoon, 2 or 3 hours, preparing what I was going to say. And I felt pretty good about it when I went to sleep last night. And I got up this morning, I thought, well, okay, I got that done. I read what I wrote, and it looked like a resume for a job. So I'm going to wing it right now. I'm going to look at some of my notes I had. But first of all, I've had some people ask me, how did I know Chris? Well, I've known Chris since I was 19 years old. I met him, like Phil, I met him in Dr. Max ST's office at LaGrange College. It was the first day of Chris's freshman year at LaGrange College. He had just declared a speech and drama major. I was also a speech and drama major. I walked into Dr. ST's office and he said, "I want you to meet your competition." Well, it could have been that way. But the funny thing was, he and I immediately began to be cast in the same productions. But Chris was always cast as the romantic male lead. I was the senile old man or the fat preacher. probably the production we were in that was that both Chris and I were probably the most proud of was a production based on the comic strip Peanuts. And it was called You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. Guess who got the part of Charlie Brown? Chris. I was in the cast also, and you know who I was? His damn dog. But it's all right, it was Snoopy. I always loved Snoopy. Anyway, we had a great time. I think we did maybe over 30 productions during the time that we were both at LaGrange College. Did some summer stock, a lot of summer stock theater. We did some dinner theater. By the way, Dr. Max Estes, his name's been mentioned several times. His son, Morris, is here tonight. Dr. Estes, or Doc as we call him, he had so much influence over Chris, myself, and really everybody that knew him in the speech and drama department. We've got some other speech and drama people here tonight from that era also. Chris, at the time we were in college, he was dabbling in music. But to me, he appeared to be destined to be a movie star. I mean, he couldn't miss. He could play a dramatic role. He could be a romantic lead and kiss all the pretty girls. He could do that. And it wasn't until Chris graduated from college that more and more of his interests began to go in the direction of music. And throughout the years, he's worked with me on music projects more times than I can possibly count. And it was always in the capacity of giving. There was never any money involved at all in any of the stuff Chris and I did together. I was really fortunate that I was able to give to him a little bit during the last couple of years. He was alive. And I worked on the Blue House album with Chris also, and we did a couple of performances together. And like Phil said, if you haven't heard that project, some of the best stuff Chris has ever written. And when you listen to it, you get this sense. Now, this was finished before Chris's passing, but the first time I heard those songs, it immediately told me this was Chris's way of saying goodbye to everybody. I hope you'll give it a listen. All right, before I go, though, we all know what a great songwriter Chris was. He was a born songwriter, prolific songwriter. We were talking about it one time, and I said, how do you do that? And he said, I don't say tree, I say sycamore. Poetic, you know. But some of his other songs, and I'm going to close on this because I just love some of the lyrics Chris has written. Some of these are kind of serious, some of them are not. The restless heart will always roam. Why do you wear ladies' shoes? Around this tree, love chased you and me. Go around the world until you find yourself in your own backyard. No lights in the windows of this sleepy town, just me and the newsboy watching the sun as it leaves the ground. Here's one of my favorite ones. This was from a musical that Chris and Dr. Estes wrote together called Blackwater. See if I can remember it. I've done got old, my bones has got brittle. That's why I play a banjo instead of a fiddle. I want to be where the wild horses run. I had a dream in New York City, it moved so fast. All right, so Bruce and Victor and Hottie are here tonight, and I'm pretty sure there was a 45 that Swingin' Richards released. It was the first time I'd ever heard anything that was pressed by the Swingin' Richards, and on the A side, it was Two Guys, One Girl, and on the B side, it was a song called Naughty Girl. Remember that? All right, I got an inside story on this. It was not supposed to be Naughty Girl. Not a girl, that's right. So how did you... Well, you'll just have to explain that whenever people ask. Wild is her favorite color. We're all captives of gravity. Here's a good one. You got on your shit-kicking boots. So far away to be so near, she's a world from here. Chris was a a dear friend. I'll always remember him. And thank you for this opportunity to speak.
I'm Jack Kirby. Chris and I were best friends in the 10th grade. I think the reason I'm here is Kent and Amy felt like that Eve and Sam and Blue might like to hear something about their father as a boy rather than a man. Everybody in this room probably knows Chris as a man better than I do. We lost, I don't know, 2 or 3 decades after the late 70s, maybe 4. It's been a while. But Chris came to West Point when his father got transferred from South Carolina to West Point, Georgia, where I was born and raised in the 10th grade. And I don't know if you guys that are from the metro area appreciate it, but towns like West Point, Georgia, like LaGrange, Georgia, those are closed ecosystems. You know, it takes 2 or 3 generations to get recognized and break in. Chris managed to do that in about 3 weeks. And the thing that was most incredible to me about Chris is he made friends so easily, but you may not appreciate that he was painfully shy. And I watched him, I guess I saw a bit of a metamorphosis when he went to LaGrange High School for his senior year. So he was with me at West Point for 10th and 11th grade. His father got transferred again up the road to LaGrange. So he moved to LaGrange, 10 miles up the road from West Point, and graduated from LaGrange High. And I saw him integrate into that group very quickly, and he introduced me to all of them. I ended up skipping my senior year of high school and went to LaGrange College, so I kind of followed Chris to LaGrange. The next year, Chris came to LaGrange College and started in the drama department. And that's where I saw this metamorphosis take place. I guess I didn't know Chris had an artistic bone in his body. When we were in the 10th grade, the 11th grade, even when he was at LaGrange College, until he started with drama, I didn't know he was particularly gifted. But it wasn't long before he made that pretty evident. He was probably the funniest person I've ever known, the most quick-witted person I've ever known. He was probably just the consummate verbal counterpuncher, and for a teenager, that's strong stuff. But when he became one of those theater people, one of these artistic types at LaGrange College, he kind of hit his stride, and I got to watch that from the cheap seats. It turns out that I learned over time, in any event, that creative people, and I'm not one of them, but most of the people in this room are more artistic and creative. But to be successful as an artist, you have to bare your soul and then sit back and let people judge you. And it takes a brave person to do that. And so what Chris was able to do with Doc Estes, when he learned how to act, I remember years later in Atlanta, I was at the Harvest Moon watching the Swingin' Richards, and I'm thinking, that's not Chris Edmonds up there. He had taken on a persona, because Chris was never a showy person. He was not one of these look at me guys. But in order to be a successful performer, he had to act. And he took on a different persona. And I was fortunate to watch that happen. One last thing, I'll just, as a humorous anecdote, I hope you won't take it badly, but one thing I remember, we were 16 years old. And one of us in a group got the idea we wanted to go to a strip club. So we had a friend that had an older brother in college, and he sold us some fake IDs. We put on our blue blazers and ties, and we drove to Atlanta. And I don't know if you guys have heard of the San Souci nightclubs. So we were 16, this is 69. Chris and I were both late bloomers. You know, when we were 16, we looked a lot closer to 13. I had a Tennessee driver's license with somebody else's picture on it that said I was 26. So we walk up to this bouncer straight out of Central Casting, a tatted up biker, burly guy. And I'm just knowing I'm about to be frog marched out and thrown on the street. And I hand him that ID, and he looks at me and he starts laughing. He hands it back to me and says, "Go on in, kid, have a good time." So Chris and I got in the San Souci Club in 1969. Now, this is before we lost our innocence, and I hope you guys will appreciate it was all G-strings and pasties back then, guys. It was a different thing, but we didn't get kicked out. We were too afraid to go order a beer. We were afraid we'd get kicked out if we went that far, but we had a great time. Chris is one of those friends that we all have that you can lose 2 or 3 decades, and when you get back together, it's like you never were apart any time at all. He moved back to LaGrange a few years ago, and we reconnected. Really thought we'd have a lot more time to get old together, and I hate that we don't, but I loved him dearly, and I know all of you do, and thanks for letting me be a part of this.
What a welcome. Hi, everyone. I'm Evie. I'm Chris's firstborn daughter, and I am so happy. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. I am so happy to see all of you here today. It's just really incredible, and I just wanted to tell all of you thank you so much for being here, seeing all of your faces, and walking around tonight and hearing stories about my dad has been the best thing ever. So thank you so much. I would like to start by reading something from my beautiful mom, Gina. I will forever cherish the family we made together, Chris, and I am so grateful that you will live in all of your children. It is such a gift that I get to see parts of you in each of them. The quietness of our blue boy. Sorry, I cannot see anything. The quietness of our blue boy, the humor in our sweet Evie, the tenacity of our sweet Sammy Lammy, the creativity, kindness, and love that is so easily shared with others, their love of music, but mostly their incredible love for our family and each other. We did good, Chris. Thank you, Mom, for that. It was beautiful. So yes, thank you all for being here, for my loving father who was so effortlessly lovable. Seeing this room and this vibrant, beautiful collection of people shows me that the immense, longer-than-life impact my dad had on us extended to far more people than I truly knew. I've been thinking about what to say today for a long time, and none of the words were ever enough. It seemed impossible to write down how monumental my dad's presence was to me and my family and my entire view of the world. And I want to put the man that we lost into context today, if I can. Everyone here knows my father well and knows how magnetic and larger than life and complicated and beautiful and poetic and charming my dad was. He could command a room with a single look and stop you in your tracks with the sound of his voice and always say the right thing even when he didn't mean to. One of his many gifts. Now, I want you to think about that sparkle in his eye and that a kind of thing that he had, that it factor. And now I want you to imagine that that was your dad. It's a huge loss. My dad was many, many things all at one time, and it feels like we've lost the 1,000 versions of him that we love so deeply. Fathers possess so much power already, but he was everything that we ever thought was cool. He was so funny and so smart and so hard to understand and so hard to impress. But my God, when you did, it felt like winning the lottery. Now imagine on top of all of that, that charisma just kept going as he got older. It was really miraculous. He never ever lost any of that. That's the only way I can think to somewhat convey who my dad was and how monumental this loss has been to us. He was absolutely everything, and we loved him so much, and as his kids, we never stood a chance. We love him so much it hurts. Our dad was so many things that I could always see a little of him in everything around us. You know, that thing you do when you're falling in love and all of a sudden every single song you hear, every movie, everything kind of reminds you of that person. That is what it's like for me and my siblings. Everything reminds us of Dad. He is everything to us. He's all around. One of the very few gifts of our grief is that since he passed, this ubiquitousness has really revved up. And we'll be somewhere watching something, and sometimes somebody delivers a punchline perfectly, like Dad always did, and we just kind of give each other a look. My dad did never make it as big as he should have, but in our household, he might as well have been the Beatles. For the record, he's Paul, Phil, just so you know. My father was a storyteller, not just in song or word, but the way he lived. And he wrote like he talked, honest, funny, a little rebellious, and full of heart. He could take something as small as an Elvis song, a long car ride, or a childhood scar and turn it into a lesson about courage, love, and being your truest self. He was a man of contradictions, like all good storytellers are. He could be quiet and introspective, yet he loved nothing more than to laugh. He could be tough when life demanded it, and yet he was always tender in ways that brought you to tears. And through all of it, the music, the letters, which you guys should read over here. My dad wrote us hundreds of letters, and they're all over here for you guys to pore over. The long conversations, he was always unmistakably steadfast and true. In his letters, he called them notes from your father. He gave us a record of his life, the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the broken. They were his love letters to us, but also to the world. He told stories about his childhood in the South, about walking alone through dark woods as a boy, about reading through loneliness, about finding his courage with a toy airplane named Thumpy. He told us that reading saved him, music saved him, storytelling saved him, and then, of course, there was Elvis. If you ever wonder what connected my father's memories and lessons together, it was Elvis Presley. Elvis was his lifelong companion, not just the king of rock and roll, but a symbol of escape and hope. My father saw Elvis and what he wanted for himself, a poor Southern boy who found his voice and refused to be told who to be. He used to say Elvis helped him be, He used to say Elvis helped him believe he could walk his own path. Out of small towns and cotton mills, out of fear, and into a life built on creativity and faith in himself. He wrote about how his dad once surprised him with a red Fender guitar on Christmas Eve, about how that red guitar took me away, in his words. No matter literally or spiritually, that gift gave him wings. My father carried the restless spirit through his whole life. As a man, he became an actor, a songwriter, and a dreamer. He found mentors who saw in him what he couldn't yet see in himself. People like Dr. Estes, who invited him to college, gave him a piano he called the White Ghost, and told him, "You're coming to LaGrange College." That single act changed his life. But my father never forgot where he came from. The cotton mill towns, the family who worked hard and struggled, the grandparents who showed him simple kindness. He told us stories about his granddaddy HQ walking him through fields of pines, and how his grandmother Katie Lee chased him through the house with clunky shoes and gave him the best hug of his life. He told us about his mama Gents, who left pound cake and orange juice on the counter after his midnight walks, a quiet sign of love waiting for him when he came home. He said those walks made him brave. King of the night, he called himself. And that pound cake was proof that someone always was watching out for him. Those memories shaped him, and he used them to shape us. He wanted his children to understand that life is about finding your voice. Even if you start out shy or scared or feeling like you don't belong, he wrote, you build yourself from the inside out, decide on some simple things that you want to be, honest, kind, and then be them. Cultivate the will to just be a little bit better. He wanted us to know that life isn't always easy, but it's always worth living. In one of those final letters, he wrote, "Life is sometimes hard, cruel, and unjust. You'll lose and win the daily battles of living. You'll lose friends and make new ones. Change will become the constant of life. Adapt to change, don't fight it, and appreciate the beauty of things, even knowing that their beauty is never meant to last." He saw beauty everywhere, in a Sunday, rainy morning, in a piece of music, in the faces of his children. He told us, "You are my story too. Loving you has been the easiest thing I have ever done." My father had a gift for turning the ordinary into the sacred. He could make a trip to Graceland sound like a pilgrimage. A little side note about that. We were supposed to go to Graceland, and life got in the way. We were all so excited, and we never got to take him there. And I just want all you to know we're going to take him, and I want him to know we're going to take you to Graceland, Dad. He called Elvis a spiritual guide, a witch doctor of the soul, and he told us that if we made the journey, we'd discover ourselves. And we did through him. He taught us that music, laughter, and love were holy things. Even near the end, the letters were full of light. He said, "There is still magic in the world. I hear it in some music. I hear it in your voices, and I feel it in my heart. The magic of love. You don't have to be anything but what you are, but pursue your dreams and the magic will come." That's who he was. A man who had seen hardship, who had made mistakes, who had lived long enough to know that love is only forever what we get. He told us to simplify when life felt too heavy, to focus on small goals, to finish something, to find joy in tiny victories, to never compare ourselves to others, and most of all, he told us to go with grace. In one of his last messages, he signed off the way he always did, with humor, with warmth, and with that mix of humanity and swagger that was pure Dad. He said, "Wherever you go, go with grace, carry yourself well, with kindness, with confidence. You are somebody. I love you." My father taught us that. He showed us that being somebody doesn't mean fame or fortune. It means being kind, being curious, and being true. He used to say, "Do you hear me, children? We never give up. To the very last, we keep our joy and love in our hearts, and we think every day might be a good day, even if it's our last." And that's how he lived. A little rock and roll, a little poetry, a little Elvis, and a lot of love. Dad will carry your voices with us. The funny ones, the hard ones, the beautiful ones. We'll keep your red guitar humming. Your letters close to our heart, and your voices in our heads, reminding us to follow that dream and stand tall, to be kind, and to never, ever give up. And when we're walking alone in the dark, we'll remember that somewhere you're walking with us, waiting, telling us that the bar and grill is always open, a song in your heart, and the same twinkle in your eye that said, "Keep going, child, the story's not over." Thank you, Dad. Thank you for everything.
Hello, I'm Pop's only grandson. My name is Ryder. I just wanted to say I really love him and I really, really miss him every single day. And he is the best grandpa in the universe.